Before we start today's mailbag, which came from our live show every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern, quick reminder, hit that like button down below if you enjoy our content today and every time you tune into an edition of Falcons Today. But let's get into our first question. It is coming in from the Jonathan229. What are the chances Jameis Winston is Penix's backup next season? It's funny how time can help out a lot because this time last year, remember we were talking about potentially signing Jameis Winston, and people were irate at that idea after he scored the touchdown in Week 18 between the Saints and the Falcons and ran up the score, and it wasn't really good sportsmanship, and Arthur Smith was blank, and I suggested signing Jameis for just vibes alone, and everyone's like, how could you say that after what he did to us in Week 18? Give it a year, and no one seems to care about that anymore. But I don't think Jameis is going to be interested, not that he may have a ton of options, in going to a spot where it's not up for grabs for the starting quarterback gig. I think he still believes, and I think there's enough evidence from his, third of a season starting in Cleveland that he can be a starter in this league. So I expect Jameis to maybe have, like, the Giants give him a call, and he has more interest there. Although he's always kind of been a Southern guy, right? From Alabama, goes to Florida State, drafted by the Bucs, goes to the Saints. Atlanta's the hub of all that SEC country, so I'm sure he'd love to, kind of get closer to home and maybe park it in Atlanta as he gets towards the end-ish of his career, believe it or not. Cody Massey, is Andrew Mukbuka a good late-round option at safety? Yes, I think there's a lot to like about Mukbuka's game. He's a good tackler. He makes lots of open field plays and awesome versatility. He's bounced around a ton. He transferred to Texas, and I can't remember where he transferred from, so someone tell me in the comment section. But yes, I think Mukbuka would be a very solid pick, especially with how valuable versatility is for DBs. I mean, think about it this way. NFL offenses are running so much three receiver sets these days that you need to have 5 quality DBs that can not just cover, but also tackle as well in open space. Because now you've got nickels lining up with linebackers at times. Because you got 3 receivers out there and a tight end, so the safeties can't just be solely focused on the tight end. So you get this $180 nickel corner trying to tackle a 225-pound tight end. You need guys that can wrap up in open space, and Mukbuka, I think, could be a great selection for Atlanta. I'm a genius. Will the Falcons franchise tag Drew Dalman? This has been, I would say, suggested, but like floated out there as a, hey, could this really happen? The short answer is no. They're not going to franchise tag Drew Dalman. The franchise tag window opened a few days ago. It'll stay open for like 2 more weeks until NFL free agency kicks off, but don't expect Atlanta to use a franchise tag on Dalman for one reason, and that's the franchise tag is not created equal for offensive linemen because it does not break down by position. If you don't know what the franchise tag is, it's basically a compromise that was made when NFL. All right, little history lesson here. For a while, there was no free agency in the NFL, right? You were drafted and you played there and you got traded, but there was not this free agency period that we see today. And so as free agency got to get introduced, some of the owners were not a fan of it. And so the compromise that was worked up was we want a franchise tag that we can place on a player and they have to stay. Players don't like it because it takes away an opportunity for them to get a long-term contract and they just get paid for 1 year. And if they were to get injured in that 1 year, they miss out on a lot of future money. So the franchise tag most often is used in the non-exclusive franchise tag, which is you take the top 5 highest paid, take the position, say, wide receiver. Top 5 highest paid receivers over the last 5 years, an average of those salaries. And that's the price you pay for that upcoming season. And if a team would like to make an offer for that player, they can submit an offer sheet. And if the player and the original team agree to that offer sheet, then the original team receives 2 first-round draft picks from the new team. So it kind of almost happened with Lamar, if you remember that a little while ago, but all the owners were in collusion not to screw the Ravens over, and no one had any interest. But going back to Drew Dalman, because I've gone on a long history tangent here, the offensive linemen, they're not broken down by position. It's not a franchise tags for centers, for guards, for tackles. They lump them all together. Center is probably the least paid position of the offensive line. So what did I say it was? Like 20. Oh, there it is, $25.8 million. That's $7 million more than what the highest paid center is making in the NFL. So no, this is a very long-winded way to explain why they will not franchise tag Drew Dalman. They are not going to give him $25.8 million fully guaranteed against the cap. $7 million more than already the highest paid center in football. Drew Dalman's going to get a contract that's between, I'd say, Ragnow and Humphrey. I think he's going to get somewhere around $14-ish million a season. So let me know if you think Atlanta will ultimately re-sign their starting center. I know the Bears have a ton of interest in Dalman. They desperately need a center for Caleb Williams, and maybe Atlanta decides we're going to focus our priorities or just resources elsewhere and try and find a new cheap center in the draft because they found Dalman in round 4. Rashard Clark, what is the position you think the Falcons might draft in the first round that you might not see coming? I think it's offensive line. Really good question, Rashard. Offensive line's a possibility if they come to the conclusion of Caleb McGarry is not the guy at right tackle. What if they move on from Caleb McGarry? They just decide, we'll take the $14 million in cap savings and we'll find a new starting right tackle, which is why in my last mock draft, I had Atlanta going with the right tackle in round 2. So in your situation here, maybe they just go with, hey, we have a young quarterback. Let's protect his blind side. You know, it might sound weird prioritizing a right tackle in the draft, but flip it in your brain. He's a lefty, so it's like prioritizing a left tackle for your young quarterback. That makes sense to me. Another one, and I was going to do a video about this, and I think I still will. Wide receiver has been tossed out there. Stop it. Absolutely not. You've got Drake London coming off the best year of his career. Darnell Mooney was so close to 1,000 yards. You really need to improve on Ray McCloud's numbers, which I thought, by the way, were really good given the size of his role for this offense. He vastly exceeded my expectations. I sure hope they don't go wide receiver. But if it's not wide receiver, how about inside linebacker? What if they have a lot of concerns about Troy Anderson and Nate Landman's long-term health? And there's a lot of good inside linebackers from Georgia and from Alabama, Jahad Campbell, Jalen Walker, that they decide to go with. Dale, you're on screen. Do you think the Jets will trade for Kirk if we split his salary? No. So any team trading for Kirk Cousins is taking on $27.5 million base salary. No team is going to take on $27.5 million in base salary. It's just not happening. I think other teams are going to call Atlanta's bluff and go, you're not keeping him to be the backup. He literally just self-sabotaged to force his way out. He admitted after lying to us all season long that he was playing through an injury. He made himself look bad in the process, but he also saved his derriere a little bit because now teams know why he did not play well. But in that process, he took an egg and went splat on Raheem Morris's head because now Morris looks like a biggest Dumbo for not noticing either his starting quarterback was injured, which you should notice, or B, playing Kirk Cousins while he was injured. That to me seems like, not to, reference another World War II thing here, a bridge too far. Before we get on with the rest of today's mailbag, quick shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players. Basketball season is heating up, and PrizePicks is the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. They put their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. Now, I'm filming this show during our live show Thursday afternoon, so we'll see how this ages after the weekend. But here are my selections for USA, Canada, and you can see if I'm 3 for 3 or one big Dumbo. But the beauty of PrizePicks is if I go 2 for 3, I can still turn a profit. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All of that information is in the comments and description of today's video. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. Burton Bros, if you were the GM, what 3 moves would you make? Picks, trades, cuts, signings, what would you do? They have to be possible. Love your video sub. Burton Bros, thank you for the nice words at the end here. All right, 3 moves. 3 moves here. Okay. With some level of realism and not just, fantasizing. This is not going to sit well with some of you, but I think I'd probably trade Kyle Pitts. I'm going to get $10+ million in salary cap relief, and I'm going to get a quality draft pick for a team that only has 5 picks, and 40% of those picks are in round 7. Now, I'm not saying Kyle Pitts can't be good. What I am telling you is Atlanta has shown me they don't think he could be good. He played less than 50% of snaps for the last 5 weeks of the season. Terry Fontenot, in his final press conference of the season, said he was disappointing. All signs point to a split. So I would probably pursue a trade for Kyle Pitts or, Pitts away and get maybe a 4th or 3rd round draft pick out of it and cut your losses before he likely inevitably walks in free agency after this season. So that's one trade right there. For draft picks, Will Johnson's my number 1 guy. Now, we'll see if he falls to 15. So it's definitely a little bit of a reach. But Christian Gonzalez fell to the Patriots at like 18 2 years ago, and we didn't see that happening. So this stuff does happen in the draft, but Will Johnson would be my, ideal selection. Cuts, I'd do my absolute best to keep Grady Jarrett and David Onyemata. I'd also keep Caleb McGarry as well. Signings, I'd bring over Khalil Mack. I think he can still play at a high level. I think he can give a good amount of pass rush upside on 3rd downs and obvious passing situations. So I'm sure I'm missing some other things I've talked about before on the channel, but I'll go with trading Pitts, drafting Will Johnson, and signing Khalil Mack. ZD Productions, do you think we should draft a tight end late in the draft or trade/sign one? It's a good tight end draft class. I don't know if tight end is something that needs to be addressed this offseason. Even if they trade Pitts away, they may have more internal optimism on Charlie Werner than you and I think. So they don't have that nice sweet spot of like, can we find a tight end in round 4 or round 5? Like, they've only got 1 pick between rounds 4, 5, and 6. So they got to make that pick count unless they add some more picks. So if they trade Pitts away, like I just said a moment ago, then you take that pick right there and you invest it in a new, younger, cheaper tight end. Landon Hale, draft Mike Green, trade back up for a high-caliber cornerback. Yeah, I don't know if you trade back up. What are you trading to go back up? I mean, like, what do you have to trade? You use 15th overall pick on Mike Green. You've got your 2nd round draft pick. You don't have a 3rd. You don't have a 5th. You've got a 4th and future draft picks. Well, I think there are some good strengths to this draft class. I don't know if cornerback is the one you're trading up for. So I'd probably say no on that idea right there. But I can get on board the Mike Green part of it. Jeremy, do you think with an estimated increase in cap space, do you think it would become easier to trade Kirk Cousins than before? No. The cap space does not impact Kirk Cousins, I'll say, like, at all, or the Kirk Cousins situation. His dead cap hit, for example, if they trade him or release him, that number doesn't change. It's just the percentage of the cap that changes. If they release Kirk Cousins, it's a $40 million dead cap hit. The question is that $40 million coming out of a $100 million salary cap pie, which is 40%, or out of a $280 million salary cap pie, or a $270 million salary cap pie, right? So you're only looking at percentages. The value of the dead money is not going to change based on the cap. So I don't see how an increased cap makes it easier to trade him away. I don't see why any team would trade Cousins when they have full right to believe he's going to get released. And if you're Cousins, you might just stick the middle finger up to Atlanta on the way out going, I'm not going to let you guys get a draft pick for me. I've got a no-trade clause. I'll veto any trade you send my way. So then we'll have a little stare down here. You're going to keep me as a backup, or you're just going to cut your losses and release me, and then I'll sign wherever I want to in free agency. My burner, PD versus Aaron. This is like the second or third time you've asked this question right here. I'm not fighting Aaron from Lockdown Falcons. I don't think Aaron's a big fan of me, though. I forgot who it was. It was like 2 or 3 months ago. I think he called me out indirectly. But I don't remember it well enough to have the details of it. So if you do, refresh my memory on it. But I'm not fighting anyone. Best to Aaron and his coverage of the team. I'm sure he does great work. I don't watch it, but for those that do, I'm sure he puts out quality stuff. All right, before we sign off, let's make sure you guys are subscribed. Scroll on down, click that like button, click the subscribe button. Help us continue to grow as a channel, and in return, we'll give you free Falcons content.